very rainy weather today. Getting it from the south here, but a little rain always kind of clears things up for me. I want to welcome everyone and thank you again for joining us this morning for the third of our 5-part Turn the Page STL webinar series, our Community Needs Assessment. My name is Lisa Greening and I'm the project manager of Turn the Page STL. Just a few housekeeping details again here at the beginning. Introduce yourself in the chat box. All happy shout outs and welcomes are encouraged. All webinar attendees who are participating are in listen only mode during this webinar to avoid background noises or other distractions. However, we highly encourage you to actively engage with your thoughts, ideas in the chat box. And if you have any questions for the presenters, please type them in the Q&A box. Kylie Bednar with UMSL has joined us again, and she will be responding to your chats and questions. This webinar will be recorded today, and a link will be sent to you via email next week, including the slide deck and other resources that we discussed today. Also, at the end of the webinar, I'm going to share a short poll, and we hope you will provide us with the feedback to help us improve our webinar series. Our agenda today, we just welcomed everyone. We have 2 amazing guests with us today. Our first guest speaker is Ms. Bernea Lester. She's going to be discussing what our community told us around 3rd grade reading proficiency. Ms. Bernea Lester, and then we're going to follow with a guest speaker, another favorite woman of mine, Mrs. Adrienne Pennington, and she's going to discuss what our community needs now since COVID. At the end, we'll have polling and next steps. So I'd like to start with our first speaker. What the community told us, why children are not reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. Mrs. Bernea Lester will be talking about the 8 focus groups that we met with over the winter and what they told us about reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. Mrs. Bernea Lester is, she is the Evaluation and Learning Manager for Community Partnerships and Coalitions for UMSL's Community Innovation and Action Center. UMSL's Community Innovation and Action Center, we call it SIAC, conducts applied research, builds skills, and coordinates partners to create whole communities. SIAC envisions a metro region, a St. Louis region that creates whole communities for all. A region of neighborhoods where residents reach their full potential and enjoy healthy lives, that build meaningful connections among neighbors, that have quality housing, economic opportunity, effective education, sustainable energy, efficient transportation, and vibrant public spaces, and that engage all parts of the community in decision-making and promote equity. Wow, we are so honored at Turn the Page STL to have hired this amazing group to lead us through this strategic planning process. So with that, I'd like to introduce Bernea Lester.
Hello, everyone out there in Zoom world. First of all, I want to just really thank and take time to appreciate Lisa Greening and all the work that all of you guys do out there with trying to really make great systemic change for our community as a whole, especially our Black and brown children as well. Really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. So just kind of before I kind of get into the details of kind of painting the picture and the atmosphere, I want to tell you where we went. So we had a chance to visit with early childhood educators, K-3 teachers, families, parents, just a very diverse group of people from all walks of life. So the first session we had was the independent early childhood centers. We held that at Indian Trails Library Branch. These particular early childhood educators were teaching in low-income communities. The next after that, we held another session with early childhood educators, the parents, of children in preschool. And that was held at at the Natural Bridge Library branch. Then after that, we had the opportunity of being invited into Urban League's Head Start and having a chance to meet with the families that have chosen to send their children to a Head Start program. Next, we went to Julia Goldstein Center in University City, and this was pre-K and third grade families. And so we had an opportunity to talk to families who both had children in pre-K programs, as well as children who were in the third grade or above as well. Then we also visited at Gateway Elementary School during St. Louis Public Schools, their professional development day. I got to sit with two groups. The first group were a group of the reading specialists in the St. Louis Public School District. And then I got to sit with teachers from K through third grade. So lots of energy there. Next, we went to Urban League Head Start again to talk to the teachers, to the educators. The teachers, some of the educators had children that were in the Head Start program, so it was definitely offered perspective to what we were able to listen to. And lastly, we were at the U City Administration Building. This is probably the biggest group of individuals, of educators, administrators, reading specialists that we had in a group, and really garnered great conversations from there. And so those are all the places that we visited. I mean, you can see the dates below. So just between December and March is where we were. So my favorite part, right? My observations. When you're walking into these rooms, there's automatically tension, just with the ability to really not know what's going to happen, right? What you're going to hear, people's perspectives, their attitudes. So I wanted to paint you a picture first with this first slide. The stories that we were able to hear from the educators, from the parents, were so phenomenal, so inspirational, of the lengths that our parents and educators and administrators go through to take care of our kids. It meant a lot to me. You go in there as really a third party, but I have to admit, myself, I have a 2 and 3 year old. So it was very inspirational to hear the stories, to even hear that you're not alone, in this fight to make sure your children are receiving the best education possible, which starts with literacy. And so we heard plenty of great stories, all the way from teachers who spent money out of their own pocket, and I'll get to that later, but just the passion that happened, and was phenomenal. I also was emotionally moved by the sacrifices that parents make. In one focus group in particular, there were 2 women that were co-parenting that happened to have children with the same father, and between them they had several children, over 10 children of different ages, and created and fostered a community of learning. They were educated women, career women, and they had a system for their kids and how they read books and what they did with their younger children, who, the games they played, and the older children reading and asking questions. It was, like I said, it was very phenomenal to see that as well. And then the expressed passions. The educators, both early childhood and the educators that were able, that teach our K through third and the public school, they have the kids' best interests at heart. They, and I'll get more into it, there's a lot that everyone goes through, a lot of sacrifices that they have to make. And these educators, there wasn't one educator that I came across that I felt that was not in it for the kids as well. And so it was inspirational. There's just a community of people out there that's willing to help and to push forward educating our students, starting with literacy. as well. And so I was impressed on every end. And when Adrienne speaks, I have the opportunity of being with her in 2 of those sessions, and the perspective that we were able to garner was so powerful and impactful. In that after the listening sessions, the people who participated, they really wanted to make sure that there was going to be real systems change. They want to hear what's going to happen next as well. So you can go to the next slide, Lisa. So I kind of wanted to just a quick evaluation, right? Of, when we're looking at the data, we're always highlighting particular trends or behaviors that we identify that tells a story and paints the picture out of all the data we listen to. So this is hours and hours of material and transcripts. And these are kind of some of the major themes that we came up with. So the first most important thing that we realized at SEAC, listened to things that all 3 groups wanted relationship. This is probably one of the most important things. It takes a village to raise a family. So we felt that authentic community was one of the staples that really would push the initiative forward. And everybody from every level required relationship. One particular teacher pointed out that she was disappointed in the public school system when a student would move who she's worked with, and she didn't get a chance to say goodbye. So these are personal relationships that our educators are forming with our children, and they want that same bond with the parents and how to engage as well. The next thing is trust. A big theme was trust. We can see it now with a lot of the civil unrest that's happening in our country right now, that trust has been broken, and we're trying to mend that trust together so that we can work, in a solid community. So some educators, educator focus groups, trust was a major underlying issue, and you could feel the tension when it came to some of those conversations. Some of the teachers did mention that there was the trust was broken when it came to administration, just because of all of the testing guidelines, those things that teachers have to succumb to because of policy, new procedures, new curriculum. And so there is broken trust in the system that needs to be fixed across all levels as well. Another huge thing, another huge trend that we identify, another variable in this equation, is that teachers express the need for psychological safety. And that's the ability to feel safe in the environment that you're working in, to be honest and give honest feedback without fear of retaliation, without fear of judgment, even without fear of losing resources. And so psychological safety, it was huge to have that mental health support, even if it was going to, garner outside. I heard, like I said, a lot of stories. Our teachers, our educators were very passionate, talking about how much they give, and that can be draining on themselves, even when it comes to functioning in their own personal lives, that there was more financial support needed. And parents also expressed the need for mental health as well. And then the last thing that we saw that was very important was families emphasized that there's a lack of safety, and that's safety from different perspectives: environmental safety, emotional and psychological safety, physical safety. That there is a need to want more safety when they're sending their kids off, and anybody can attest to that. If you're sending your kids off, you want them to be secure holistically. And that was a major theme of what we garnered as a trend of what was happening in these focus groups. And all these things are relevant to our, language arts and reading, because in order to support these things, we have to have that safety first for the kids, for the parents, for the educators to move forward. You can move to the next slide. So one thing we did is just kind of went through, Lisa sent a document of kind of an analysis of all the data that kind of really dug deep into the resource. And I know we went through some of those things, but this is kind of out of that research, what we garnered as far as what we were hearing from the family voice. So these are things that were expressed by several parents across several focus groups and listening sessions that we did. The first is that the expressed need is families do trust their teachers. So there's a phenomenal early childhood programs in our community. However, families are concerned about the safety in many early childhood centers, citing distrust as a reason not to enroll them. So that is an expressed need. Like I said, that need to trust the system or trust the organization that you're sending your child to. The next one is that families love relationship. And I mentioned this in that quick evaluation, the importance of relationships, especially when it comes to trust building. So families consider many of their children's early educators as members of their own family. So that emphasizes from the family's perspective the important role of why relationship is so imperative in the model of teaching children. The legacy depends on it. A lot of expressed needs from the parents, they were wanting to note that the quality of their education is critical to the legacy of the generations that they're raising. And so paying attention to literacy and paying attention to the education needs of their children is so important because there's so much depending on continuing a generational cycle of educational wealth and knowledge as well. The next one, families want to go. What I mean by that, so even when families want to engage, they lack access. So a need that we saw was transportation. And so that we see there's a lot of programs from like the History Museum, from the Art Museum, when these places do open back up for the public, they want to go, but it's very hard. One parent noted, I need to spend my money on food, not on a taxi to take us to story time. And so as you see, there is a need for those basic needs. If, and resources, they want to send their kids to explore and experience new things, but there are limitations. And that's the reality, is that there are limitations. Next, what's out there? Families express that they do not know where to find some resources to assist them. At some point, and Lisa can attest to this, we would find ourselves in the listening session of parents and educators sharing different resources that the other parent or educator had not heard of before. And so that there is a need for shared resources for parents to really have something where they can get exposure to activities, learning literacy activities that's taking place all over the city as well. Families want more info. Families do not know how to choose a child care center, especially ones that will be dedicated to the literacy of their children. And then holistic support. Another expressed needs is that even during difficult times, we try our best to teach our children, is what some parents say. But what's really interesting to me is that our parents, they need support as well, so that they can have time to read their child a story, so that they can have time to invest that equity in building their child's literacy and really looking at books and looking at information. But there is support, economical support, like I said, mental, emotional, and just the trauma that people face on a day-to-day basis. They need support.
And then I'm going to jump in here just a second. We're going to try to go through it a little quicker, faster, just because of time. Okay.
Sure. And then safe and happy summers. So families want safe, free places where children can meet and play. So you can go to the next slide, Lisa.
Oh, whoops, now I'm
There you go. So express needs for early childhood educators, and I'll go through these quickly because some of these are repetitive. So training and development is something that is an express need. Value, early educators, our early childhood educators want to engage with families that value. So they're looking for ways to engage those families to be more participatory in what's going on with their child. Reflection, there's a need for more culturally relevant material. They want to see their reflection as in a mirror. So that's why I named it reflection, giving that mirror response of seeing themselves. Family literacy, to be honest, some early educators did tell us that some of their parents do not know how to read. And that comes with another list of issues when it comes to guilt and shame, and really just not letting or having the relationship to let the teacher know that I need help as a parent. Relationship attendance is huge for early childhood educators. Their child just attending, being chronically absent or tardy, and having the resources to help. Family accountability. Children report that they lose their books at home. Families report to teachers that time is an issue due to jobs, other children's responsibilities. So there's some accountability factors that teachers, early child care educators are asking for. And then kindergarten ready, and just making sure that the early educators have a solid curriculum to teach their children to be kindergarten ready, especially when it comes to literacy as well. So we can move to the next slide. And then our K through third teachers. So relationship, again, the value of early child care. Some parents do not value early childhood education, but our teachers, K through third, are saying that they need it, that it is a must-have to really catch up and to really close that gap of those literacy scores as well. Connection. Some teachers do not feel connected with the community. Like the example I gave you earlier, a student moves, that teacher has no idea where that student has gone. And so they feel like there is no community connection. They want to be part of the solution. So there are administrative requirements that interfere with classroom time. And so our teachers, they want to be a part of the solution, but sometimes that's hard when there's so many testing requirements, so many other stipulations that they have to agree upon and to pursue as they teach. Sustainability. So there is no agreed good ELA curriculum. That a lot of teachers reported to us that there was so many different changing curriculums over and over again. And then the work conditions, the environment. Our teachers are already feeling stressed and traumatized, but they also feel abused sometimes by the administration as well. They need support through teachers' assistants. They're dealing with large class sizes, and if one in St. Louis Public Schools, if there is a teacher that will not be there, they generally will split that class up and put fifth graders with kindergartens. And now that teacher has 32 students in their class. And then lastly, students that show up. Again, class, starts ELA curriculums. What I found out from most teachers are in the morning. When those students are tardy and absent, they're missing that ELA and they have too much of a workload to really have time to catch the students that missed it, catch them up as well. Thank you. Next one, Lisa. So just some more highlights. This particular model that I put in an infographic, it just kind of really shows how all of this is connected to successful literacy from what we've heard. You have the three circles with sacrifices, adaptations, and contributions. There's a lot of sacrifices that have been made from parents, from educators, from administrators, from the community itself with our public libraries. And the triangle, you see educator, parents, and community, because all of us are working together to improve these literacy rates. And I know that Lisa's going to send you the slides, so I don't want to read all of these, but just want to highlight that what we heard is that there is a system that can really help towards improving our children's literacy rates, and it doesn't take a lot. It really takes relationship building the trust having those open conversations, starting to foster those conversations so that everyone can move forward as we continue to, create this great outcome of educating not only all of our children, but, it's right now, especially those in our Black communities as well. So I will turn it back over to Lisa.
Pranaya, that was wonderful. There's so much more to discuss, and we will continue discussing this. Turn the Page STL has just started. These focus groups did take place before COVID. So I wanted to bring a wonderful educator to us today to talk about what's the additional factors on top of what we just talked about now with COVID, that is the stressors of teaching your children at home and for our early educators. With over 25 years of experience in early childhood education, I'd like to introduce Adrienne Pennington. She has directed and owned multiple child care centers in the St. Louis community. She's a certified early childhood trainer, a professional development specialist, and a coach. Her leadership skills have allowed her the ability to assist with both team building and classroom coaching, which has led to higher retentions of staff in our area child care centers. Mrs. Pennington is also the co-founder of STAR, Staff Coaching, Training, Advocates, and Resource Referrals. And she also serves as a fellow for WePower STL and sits on several advisory boards, committees to address changes needed in the field of early care and education. She's also actively involved in MOM, Meeting of the Minds, Early Childhood Directors Connection Group. And with that, I'd like to introduce Adrienne and just get her perspective of what's going on currently.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction, Lisa and Pranaya. Lord have mercy, how can I follow you? Lady, listen, your information was on point. I just want to say good morning to everyone. And after doing the focus groups and talking about children and the gap for literacy, once COVID hit, I believe right now what the stressors that families and children are seeing is like what Renee said, the relationships and the trust. A lot of families, including in the center that I run, are lacking technology, so they're not able to keep up with the things children are needing for school, their reading, their math activities and things like that. We were blessed to get a grant for some of our children to even get laptops or what do you call it, tablets, so that they can keep up with learning. We did a survey. Out of the 50 families that we served, 40 families were allowing their children to access their cell phones to do activities, which 9 out of 10 of them did not include reading programs. They were more often video games, things to keep them occupied. And so I reached out to a generous funder, and they were able to get these tablets into the hands of children that had PBS information on it. And the parents really, that built another level of trust for us because we listened to what they needed. And right now, parents are saying, I can't teach my children because I don't have enough money in the bank to make sure I have food. Some parents are not working still, and they have to compete with trying to teach their children, provide food for their families, and then still trying to find a job. Parents that are working right now, they believe that this is okay, they'll get their schooling later. I have to work an 8 to 10 hour shift. And for me to come home and try to teach my second grader, parents are in survival mode right now. And children are lacking, and not all parents are able to teach children because as a community, a lot of parents can't teach the way the new system is going. That new math and that new putting together the blends and the consonants. Some parents, as Renee said, are not reading themselves, so we need to find ways to support them. What I think children need right now are regular schedules. Still, they need to be on a regular schedule. They need a sense of normalcy. You know, they need routines, and they need for educators, teachers, parents, and other people to actually listen to children. You know, that communication piece is very important when it comes to finding out what their need, what are they crying out for? Because a lot of times we dismiss children because they are children. But truthfully, we need to listen to them so that we can make positive change. As far as it relates to literacy, we want to get more books into the homes. Again, we've been graced with another grant to allow books, full books for families, for children to get in homes. And now we're trying to connect activities with those books and other things that go inside. So not only are they getting books to read, but they have the book, the activity, the equipment, everything to bring that book alive. So that not only, you know, we want them not just to pick up the book and read it, we want them to imagine, explore, and take it to another place. We need to help children and parents manage their anxiety. So right now our center is open. We've been open through the whole COVID-19, but we still hug children because children need hugs. You know, we wear masks, yes, but when that child comes to you and I did have a teacher that said, "Oh no, don't touch me again," it doesn't work. There's a disconnect. They still need trust. They still need routines, and they still need you to love them and love on them, because sometimes this is the only place where they can get that. In closing, I want to say to keep children and parents in the loop about what's going on. Even we need to limit their television access, which we all know that they shouldn't have more than 30 minutes, but it's a lot going on in this world, and it's stressful, not only to parents and educators, but to children as well. And there's a way, the doorbell rang the other day, and I'm gonna be really quick, but there's a Caucasian gentleman at the door. He's dropping off paychecks. I have a camera in my office, and a little girl looked up, and I said to the teacher, "Could you get the door? Somebody's there." And she started crying. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "He's gonna kill us." I said, "Excuse me? Why would you say that?" And she said, "Because white people kill black people." She's 4. And I had to call her mother and tell her about this conversation, because children go home and they say, "Hey, mom," you know, so I like to give parents the head up. But then I had to go out the rest of the day and find resources to help her and to help her mom. Mom said she don't know where she got that from, but she watches the news. So children are being affected by everything that's going on. First there's COVID, then there's killings, now there's riots. It's stressful. So how do we help children in this time right now to get those books in their hand about stress, about grief, about love, about pandemics, about infections, all those type of things, and then still give them that social emotional support that they need, and to pass it on to their family.
Thank you, Adrienne. Um, we have got a tremendous amount of work to do here in this community. I know that these webinars are for information, and that after we complete them, we will be diving into exactly the stories that Bernea told us, and exactly how Adrienne sees the families around her feeling right now. I will appreciate everybody taking a few extra moments today than was regularly discussed. I will go on to say that I hope you will all join us next Tuesday, June 16th. We have Katie Ron with Southside Early Childhood Center talking about the importance of kindergarten readiness for 3rd grade reading proficiency. And then we're going to have the head of education for Beyond Housing talk about how family engagement is absolutely important from child birth through 3rd grade regarding reading proficiency. So I hope you will join us then. Like I said, we're still in the data collection process in part 1. And in July, we will dive into our issue analysis and root causes with all of you. And I so appreciate helping us turn the tide, turn the opportunities for all of our children that are not given the same opportunities currently in St. Louis. I want to thank you, and contact me anytime if you have any questions, or Kylie, or Adrian, or Renea. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.